Have you ever wished you could go back in time and silence everyone who ever doubted you? We've all fantasized about that perfect moment of revenge, walking into a room where everyone expects you to fail, only to leave them absolutely speechless. Well, for Madeline Sterling, that fantasy became a terrifying reality. She walked into her 10-year reunion alone, facing an ex-husband who had destroyed her life and stripped her of her dignity. He thought he had the upper hand. He thought he could humiliate her one last time in front of everyone they knew. But he made one fatal calculation. He didn't know who was coming through those doors to pick her up. Grab your popcorn, because this is the story of how arrogance met a billionaire reality check. The invitation had sat on the marble kitchen island for 3 weeks, gathering dust, staring at Madeline Sterling like an unblinking eye. Westbridge University, class of 2014, 10-year reunion. For most people, a reunion is a chance to relive the glory days, to drink cheap punch, and lie about how much weight they haven't gained. For Madeline, it was a summons to a trial where the verdict had been delivered 5 years ago. You're not going to wear that, are you? The memory of Derek's voice was so sharp it almost cut her skin. She looked at her reflection in the floor-to-length mirror of her walk-in closet. She was wearing a simple, elegant black slip dress. No sequins, no flashy logos, just silk that draped over her frame like water. 5 years ago, Derek Caldwell, her college sweetheart, the man she had worked 2 jobs to support while he finished his MBA, had handed her divorce papers over a breakfast of burnt toast and cold coffee. "It's just evolution, Maddie," Derek had said, checking his Rolex, a gift she had saved 6 months to buy him. "I'm going places, I'm climbing. And you're happy being a librarian. You're happy with coupons and camping trips. I need a partner who fits the life I'm building. You're just dead weight." He had left her with the lease she couldn't afford, a beat-up Honda Civic, and a shattered sense of self-worth. Within 3 months, he was engaged to Jessica Thorne, the daughter of a real estate mogul. Jessica was loud, flashy, and everything Derek thought success looked like. Madeline shook her head, dispelling the memory. She wasn't that girl anymore. She wasn't the weeping mess who begged him to stay. "Honey?" A deep, calm voice came from the bathroom. Madeline smiled, the tension in her shoulders instantly dropping an inch. "I'm in the closet, Liam." Liam Bennett walked in, buttoning the cuffs of a crisp white shirt. He wasn't the kind of man who sucked the air out of the room with arrogance. He was the kind of man who filled it with stability. He had kind eyes, graying slightly at the temples, and a smile that was reserved only for her. "You look stunning," Liam said, walking up behind her and kissing her neck. "But you also look like you're about to walk into a firing squad." "It's just the reunion," Madeline sighed, leaning back against him. "Derek will be there. With Jessica." Liam paused. He knew the history. He knew the scars Derek had left on Madeline's psyche, scars that had taken Liam 2 years of patience and love to help heal. "Do you want me to cancel the Tokyo call? I can be there right at the start." "No." Madeline turned and straightened his collar. "You have to take that call. It's the merger. It's vital for the company. Besides, I can handle Derek for an hour. You said you'd be there by 8 p.m., right?" 8 p.m. sharp, I promise," Liam said. "I'll have the driver drop you off." "Actually," Madeline bit her lip, "I think I want to drive myself. I want to arrive quietly. I don't want a scene. Not yet." Liam chuckled, a low rumble in his chest. "Low profile? I like it. Just remember, Maddie, you don't have anything to prove to them. You built a life. A real one." "I know," she whispered. But as she grabbed her clutch and headed for the garage, a tiny part of her, the part that was still 24 years old and heartbroken, was terrified. She wasn't driving a luxury car tonight. She was taking her old, restored vintage Volvo. It was quirky and cool to people who knew cars, but to people like Derek, it would look like she was still stuck in the past. And maybe, she thought, that was exactly the trap she wanted to set. The Grand Oak Hotel ballroom was dripping in gold and navy blue, the colors of Westbridge University. A jazz band played softly in the corner, drowned out by the roar of 300 people pretending to be more successful than they actually were. Madeline handed her coat to the check-in girl and took a deep breath. She entered the room, scanning the crowd. It took less than 30 seconds for the wolves to circle. "Oh my God, Madeline! Madeline Sterling!" The voice was high-pitched and dripping with faux concern. It was Tiffany Mills, the former sorority president who had spent 4 years making Madeline feel like a charity case. Tiffany was wearing a dress that cost more than Madeline's first car, and she was holding a glass of champagne like a weapon. "Hi, Tiffany," Madeline said, forcing a polite smile. "Good to see you." Tiffany's eyes scanned Madeline from head to toe, lingering on the simple black dress and the lack of visible jewelry. Madeline had left her engagement ring, a rare 4-carat blue diamond, at home in the safe, opting for simple pearl studs. "Wow, you look exactly the same," Tiffany chirped, which in their language meant, "You haven't improved." "I heard about the divorce. Ages ago, right? We were all so devastated for you. Derek is doing so well, isn't he? I saw him in Forbes, or was it Fortune?" "He seems to be doing fine," Madeline said neutrally. "And you?" Tiffany stepped closer, lowering her voice conspiratorially. "What are you doing now? Still at the library?" "I'm actually working in non-profit management now," Madeline said. It was the truth, but a massive understatement. She ran the Bennett Foundation, a multi-billion-dollar philanthropic arm that built schools across Southeast Asia and libraries in rural America, but she didn't feel the need to elaborate. "Oh, that's sweet," Tiffany cooed, patting Madeline's arm. "Charity work, very noble. It doesn't pay much, but it's good for the soul, right?" Before Madeline could respond, the atmosphere in the room shifted. It was a subtle change, like the tide going out. Heads turned toward the main double doors. The volume of chatter dropped, then spiked again in excited whispers. Derek had arrived. He walked in like he owned the hotel. He had filled out in the last 5 years, his face a little puffier, his hair thinning slightly, but styled aggressively to hide it. He wore a bespoke Italian suit that was just a shade too shiny, and on his arm was Jessica. Jessica was a vision in neon pink. She was beautiful, undeniably, but she looked bored, scrolling on her phone while Derek worked the room, shaking hands, clapping backs and laughing too loudly at his own jokes. Madeline turned to walk toward the bar, hoping to avoid the collision, but fate and Derek's ego had other plans. "Well, well, well," Derek's voice boomed. Madeline froze. She slowly turned around. Derek was standing 5 feet away, a glass of scotch in his hand, a smirk plastered on his face. He looked at her with the same condescending pity he had worn the day he left her. "I didn't think you'd show up, Maddie," Derek said, stepping into her personal space. "I figured the ticket price might be a bit steep for a librarian's budget." A few people nearby chuckled nervously. Tiffany covered her mouth, hiding a smile. "Hello, Derek," Madeline said, her voice steady, though her heart was hammering against her ribs. "It's been a long time." "Has it?" Derek laughed, gesturing to her simple dress. "Doesn't look like much has changed for you. Still wearing the same understated style. Very frugal. I respect that. Someone has to keep the lights on, right?" Jessica looked up from her phone, snapping her gum. "Is this the ex, the one who cried about the Honda? Jessica, be nice, Derek said, his tone mocking. Maddie did her best. She was a great starter wife. Helped me get through the rough patch before the real money came in. He leaned in closer, his breath smelling of expensive scotch and cigars. Look, Maddie, he said, lowering his voice so only she and the immediate circle could hear. I know it must be hard seeing me like this. VP of sales at Horizon Tech, driving a Porsche, living in the hills. If you need a handout, or maybe a job, Jessica's dad needs a new receptionist. I could put in a good word, for old times' sake. Madeline felt a heat rising in her chest. Not shame, anger. I'm doing just fine, Derek, she said coldly. I don't need your help. Of course, of course. Derek waved his hand dismissively. Pride is free, right? But seriously, look at you. You look tired. Life's been rough, huh? No man on your arm. No ring on your finger. He glanced at her bare left hand. It's sad, really, Derek announced, turning to the group of onlookers, turning Madeline into a spectacle. Some people grow, and some people just stagnate. But hey, we can't all be winners, right? Madeline unclenched her jaw. She checked her watch. It was 7:45 p.m. 15 minutes. She looked Derek dead in the eye. Be careful, Derek. You never know when the tables might turn. Derek threw his head back and laughed, a loud, barking sound that echoed off the high ceilings. The tables. Maddie, I bought the table. I own the table. You're just lucky I'm letting you sit at it. He turned his back on her, dismissing her as if she were a servant. Come on, Jess, let's go find some people who actually matter. I think the CEO of Omnicorp is here. As Derek walked away, leaving Madeline standing alone in the circle of judgment, Tiffany leaned in one last time. Don't worry, sweetie, Tiffany whispered. The open bar is free. You should take advantage of it. Madeline watched them walk away. She took a sip of her sparkling water. Just wait, she thought. Just wait. The dinner service began at 8:15 p.m. Madeline had been relegated to table 19, located near the kitchen doors, sitting with a guy who sold insurance and a woman who wouldn't stop talking about her cats. Derek, naturally, was at table 1, the gold circle table in the center of the room, surrounded by the class president, the former football captain, and the few other alumni who had achieved recognizable wealth. Madeline checked her phone under the table. Message from Liam. Landed. Traffic is bad on the bridge. 10 minutes out. Hang in there, love. She sighed. 10 minutes felt like 10 years in this room. The class president, a man named Greg, who was now a local politician, took the stage. Welcome back, class of 2014. We have some amazing stories of success tonight. But before we get to the dancing, we have a special sponsor for tonight's platinum champagne toast. Mr. Derek Caldwell. Applause broke out. Derek stood up, buttoning his jacket, and jogged up the stairs to the stage. He took the microphone with the ease of a man who loved the sound of his own voice. Thanks, Greg. Derek beamed. Look, it's great to see everyone. When I look out at this crowd, I see potential, but I also see reality. 10 years ago, I was a broke student. I had nothing but ambition. I had people dragging me down. He paused, and his eyes scanned the dark room, locking on to table 19. The spotlight operator, sensing the drama, swung the beam across the room. It hit Madeline. She froze. The entire room turned to look at her. We all make choices, Derek continued, his voice oozing with false philosophy. I chose to cut the dead weight. I chose to leave behind the small life. And yeah, it was hard. Breaking hearts is hard. But look where it got me. He gestured to himself, then to the massive banner of Horizon Tech he had paid to have displayed. My ex-wife is here tonight, Derek said, pointing directly at Madeline. The room went dead silent. This was beyond petty. This was cruel. "Madeline, wave to the crowd." Madeline didn't move. She stared at him, her face a mask of stone. "She's shy," Derek chuckled. "But seriously, Maddie serves as a reminder to me, a reminder of what happens when you settle, when you don't have the drive to be great. So, I want to propose a toast." He raised his glass. "To the winners," Derek shouted, "and to the losers who remind us how good we have it. Cheers!" A few people clapped awkwardly. Most just murmured, uncomfortable with the public bullying. But Derek didn't care. He drank his champagne, feeling like a king. "Oh, and one more thing," Derek added, not ready to let it go. "Since I paid for the open bar, Maddie, make sure you don't drink too much. I know how you get when you're emotional about your bank account." Laughter from table 1. Jessica was cackling. Madeline stood up. The chair scraped loudly against the floor. "Going somewhere?" Derek taunted from the stage. "Running away again?" "No," Madeline said. Her voice wasn't amplified, but in the silence of the ballroom, it carried. She walked out from behind table 19. She didn't walk toward the exit. She walked toward the center of the room. "I'm not running, Derek," she said, stopping 10 feet from the stage. "I'm just waiting." "Waiting for what? An Uber?" Derek sneered. Suddenly, the heavy double doors at the back of the ballroom burst open. It wasn't a servant. It wasn't a late guest. 6 men in black suits with earpieces walked in, forming a phalanx. They moved with military precision, clearing a path. The air in the room changed instantly. The temperature seemed to drop. Then he walked in. He was tall, wearing a tuxedo that fit him so perfectly it made Derek's suit look like a rental. He didn't look at the crowd. He didn't look at the stage. He walked with a predator's focus, straight toward Madeline. A hush swept over the room. Whispers ignited like wildfire. "Is that—" "No way. That's Liam Bennett. The billionaire, the guy who owns Bennett Global? What is he doing in a dump like this?" Derek stood on the stage, the microphone hanging loosely in his hand. He squinted against the spotlight. He recognized the face from the cover of Time magazine, but his brain couldn't process why this titan of industry was walking toward his broke ex-wife. Liam reached Madeline. He ignored the 300 staring eyes. He gently took her hand and kissed her knuckles. "I'm sorry I'm late, darling," Liam said, his voice deep and audible to the stunned front row. The Prime Minister wouldn't stop talking. He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. "And," Liam added, "I think you forgot this on the vanity." He opened the box. The 4-carat blue diamond caught the light, sending a prism of blue fire across the room. A collective gasp went up from the women in the room. Liam slid the ring onto Madeline's finger. Then he turned. He looked up at the stage. He looked at Derek. Liam didn't smile. He didn't shout. He simply adjusted his cufflinks and spoke in a voice that commanded absolute silence. "I believe," Liam said, "you have the microphone, and I believe you were just insulting my wife." The silence in the Grand Oak Ballroom was absolute. It was the kind of silence usually reserved for funerals or bomb defusal squads. 300 pairs of eyes were darting back and forth between Derek, sweating under the stage lights, and Liam, who stood like a marble statue in the center of the dance floor. Derek Caldwell gripped the microphone so hard his knuckles turned white. His brain was misfiring. He knew who Liam Bennett was. Everyone in the business world did. Liam was the chairman of Bennett Global, a conglomerate that ate companies like Horizon Tech for breakfast. But Derek's ego couldn't reconcile the image of this titan standing next to Madeline, the woman Derek had discarded because she clipped coupons. "Your wife?" Derek stammered into the microphone. The feedback whined, a high-pitched screech that made everyone wince. Liam didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. Yes. My wife. The woman you just publicly berated to make yourself feel like a big man. Liam took a slow step forward. The crowd parted instantly, creating a wide avenue between him and the stage. He walked with a terrifying calmness, his polished shoes clicking rhythmically on the parquet floor. I asked you a question, Mr. Caldwell, Liam said, stopping at the base of the stairs leading to the stage. He looked up, not with anger, but with the cold curiosity of a scientist examining a bug. Is it your habit to insult the guests of honor, or is this a special performance just for us? Derek laughed nervously. It was a wet, pathetic sound. Look, Mr. Bennett, it's a joke, just old college humor. Madeline and we have a history. She knows I'm just ribbing her. Right, Maddie? Derek looked desperately at Madeline, pleading with his eyes for her to play along, to save him from the monster at the gate. Madeline stepped up beside Liam. She placed a hand on Liam's arm, not to hold him back, but to assert her presence. She looked up at her ex-husband. The fear she had felt 10 minutes ago was gone, replaced by a strange pity. We don't have a history, Derek, Madeline said softly, her voice carrying clearly. We have a past. There's a difference. And as for the joke, I don't think anyone is laughing. She gestured to the room. The crowd was stone-faced. Tiffany Mills, who had been snickering earlier, was now staring at her shoes, terrified of making eye contact. Derek wiped sweat from his forehead. Okay. Look, let's not blow this out of proportion. I'm the sponsor of the night. I paid for the champagne. I'm just trying to show everyone a good time. You paid for the champagne? Liam asked, raising an eyebrow. He reached into his tuxedo jacket and pulled out a black card made of anodized titanium. He turned to one of the waiters hovering nearby. Excuse me, Liam said to the waiter. What is the total cost of this event? The venue, the food, the band, and Mr. Caldwell's champagne. The waiter blinked, terrified. I don't know exactly, sir. Maybe 50,000. Make it 100, Liam said, handing the waiter the card. I'm buying the night. Refund Mr. Caldwell his money. Every cent. I don't want my wife drinking anything that man paid for. A gasp rippled through the room. It was the ultimate power move. In 10 seconds, Liam had stripped Derek of his status as the host and reduced him to just another guest. You can't do that, Derek sputtered, his face turning red. This is my reunion. I'm the VP of sales at Horizon Tech. You can't just walk in here and Horizon Tech, Liam interrupted, testing the name on his tongue as if he'd tasted something sour. Right. Mid-level software solutions, based in Seattle, stock ticker HZT, trading at about $14 a share, down 10% since last quarter. Derek froze. How do you know the ticker? Liam smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. I know the ticker, Derek, because I read the acquisition reports this morning. You might want to check your email. The color drained from Derek's face so fast he looked like a corpse. He fumbled for his phone in his pocket, his hands shaking so badly he almost dropped it. What are you talking about? Derek whispered, swiping at his screen. Business is brutal, isn't it? Liam continued, his voice conversational, as if discussing the weather. Horizon Tech has been bleeding money for 2 years. Your CEO, Mr. Henderson, has been looking for a buyer to save the ship. He found one yesterday. Derek's eyes went wide as he read the urgent internal memo that had hit his inbox 20 minutes ago. Subject, acquisition announcement, Bennett Global. You. Derek looked up, horror struck. You bought us? I bought the parent company, Liam corrected, which makes me your boss's boss's boss. Technically, I own the chair you sit in, the laptop you type on, and the lease on that Porsche you like to brag about, since it's a company car." The room was in chaos. People were whispering frantically. The realization was hitting everyone at once. Derek hadn't just insulted his ex-wife. He had insulted the wife of the man who literally owned his career. Jessica, standing off to the side of the stage, looked like she was about to be sick. She looked at Derek, then at Liam, calculating the odds. "Now," Liam said, taking a step up the stairs onto the stage. He towered over Derek. "I generally don't get involved in the micromanagement of my subsidiaries. I have people for that. But since I'm here, and since you seem to have so much free time to plan humiliating speeches—" Liam pulled out his own phone. He dialed a number and put it on speaker. It rang once. "Yes, Mr. Bennett?" a crisp voice answered. "Henderson," Liam said. "I'm at the Westbridge reunion. I'm standing next to your VP of Sales, Derek Caldwell." "Oh, is he representing the company well?" Henderson asked, his voice full of hope. "He's currently on stage, drunk, insulting women, and damaging the brand image of my new acquisition," Liam said coldly. "He also seems to think his position is secure." There was a long pause on the line. Then Henderson's voice came back, harder. "Put him on." Liam held the phone out to Derek. Derek stared at the device like it was a grenade. Mr. Henderson?" "Derek," Henderson's voice boomed through the speakers. "Pack your desk. Security will meet you in the lobby on Monday to collect your badge. You're done. And don't even think about the severance package. That was contingent on conduct." "But, Phil, please. It's a misunderstanding," Derek begged, his voice cracking. I can fix this." "You insulted Liam Bennett's wife, you moron," Henderson shouted. "You're lucky he doesn't sue us. You're fired. Effective immediately." Click. The line went dead. Derek stood there, holding the dead microphone. He was no longer the VP of Sales. He was no longer the rich alumnus. He was an unemployed man in a rented suit, standing in front of everyone he had ever tried to impress. Hard karma, Madeline whispered to herself. Liam took the phone back and slipped it into his pocket. He turned to the crowd. "I apologize for the interruption. Please enjoy the dinner. It's on me." He offered his arm to Madeline. "Shall we find a table, my love? The air up here smells like desperation." As they walked off the stage, leaving Derek standing alone in the spotlight, the crowd parted for them like the Red Sea. But this time, the looks weren't of judgment. They were looks of reverence, fear, and awe. But the night wasn't over. Derek wasn't the kind of man to go down quietly. His humiliation had brewed into a toxic rage. Madeline and Liam were ushered to table 1, Derek's former table. The hotel staff, realizing the shift in power, had hurriedly cleared the settings for the former football captain and set down fresh, gold-rimmed plates for the Bennetts. As Madeline sat down, she felt a tap on her shoulder. It was Tiffany Mills. "Maddie! Oh my God!" Tiffany gushed, crouching down beside Madeline's chair. Her face was flushed with fake excitement. "I just wanted to say, I am so happy for you. I always told everyone, Maddie is the smart one. She's going to land on her feet. You look incredible. We should totally grab brunch tomorrow? I'd love to hear about the foundation." Madeline looked at Tiffany. She remembered Tiffany laughing when Derek made the comment about the Honda. She remembered Tiffany ignoring her calls 5 years ago when she needed a friend. Madeline didn't smile. She picked up her napkin and unfolded it gracefully. "Tiffany," Madeline said, her voice cool and detached, "I have a very good memory. I remember who held my hand when I was crying in the dorms, and I remember who laughed when my husband left me. You weren't in the first group. Tiffany's smile faltered. Oh, come on, don't be like that. It was just high school stuff. We're 32, Tiffany, Madeline said. It hasn't been high school for a long time. Please, go enjoy the free bar. I think that's more your speed. Tiffany turned bright red. She stood up and scurried away, the whispers of the people at the nearby tables following her. Across the room, near the exit, Derek was unraveling. He had descended from the stage and was currently shouting at Jessica near the coat check. "You have to talk to your dad," Derek hissed, grabbing Jessica's arm. "He knows people. He can fix this." Jessica yanked her arm away. Her face was a mask of disgust. My dad hates losers, Derek, and you just got fired by the richest man in the hemisphere on speakerphone. You're toxic." "I did this for us," Derek shouted, attracting the attention of the security guards. "To show them we made it." "No," Jessica snapped. "You did it for you. You're obsessed with her. You've been talking about this reunion for 6 months. You wanted to hurt her, and instead, you just blew up our lives." She reached into her clutch and pulled out a set of keys. "What are you doing?" Derek asked. "I'm taking the Porsche," Jessica said. "It's in my name, remember. My dad co-signed. You can take an Uber, or... What did you say to her? Maybe you can walk." "Jess, don't do this," Derek pleaded, reaching for her. "Don't touch me," she screamed. 2 of the large men in black suits, Liam's personal security detail, materialized out of the shadows. They didn't look like hotel security. They looked like special forces. "Is there a problem here, Mom?" one of them asked Jessica. "Yes," Jessica said, smoothing her dress. "This man is harassing me, and I believe he's trespassing, since Mr. Bennett bought the event." The guard turned to Derek. "Sir, you need to leave." "I'm not leaving!" Derek roared. The alcohol, the shock, and the rage boiled over. He looked across the room and saw Madeline laughing at something Liam whispered in her ear. She looked radiant. She looked happy. And she wasn't looking at him. That was the worst part. She wasn't even angry anymore. She was just... done. Derek broke. "Madeline!" he screamed, shoving past the guard. He charged back into the ballroom. "You think you're better than me? You're nothing. You're just a gold digger. You played the victim until you found a sugar daddy." The room fell silent again. Derek was stumbling toward table 1, his eyes wild, his tie undone. He looked deranged. Liam started to stand up, his face darkening, but Madeline placed a hand on his chest to stop him. "No," she said softly. "Let me." Madeline stood up. She didn't retreat. She walked around the table to meet Derek in the middle of the floor. Derek stopped 5 feet away, breathing heavily. "Admit it. You manipulated him. You planned this whole thing." Madeline looked at him, sadness in her eyes. Not for herself, but for the waste of a human being standing in front of her. "I didn't plan anything, Derek," she said calmly. "I came here tonight hoping you had changed, hoping that maybe, after 5 years, you had found some peace. But you're exactly where I left you, angry, insecure, and small." "I am a VP," Derek shouted, though the title was now a lie. "I am a success." "Success isn't a title, Derek," Madeline said, her voice ringing out like a bell. "Success is sleeping at night, knowing you haven't hurt anyone to get what you have. Success is loyalty, something you never understood." She took a step closer. "You called me a gold digger," she said. "But do you remember when we were 22? When you couldn't afford your rent? Who paid it, Derek? I did. When you needed a suit for your first interview, I sold my grandmother's necklace to buy it for you. I didn't love you for money. I loved you despite the lack of it. That's what you threw away." The crowd was mesmerized. This was the truth that had been buried for 5 years. "I loved you when you were nothing," Madeline finished, her voice breaking slightly. "And now that you have nothing again, I just feel sorry for you." Derek opened his mouth to retort, to spew more venom, but no words came out. The truth hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. He looked around the room. No one was on his side. Not his wife, not his friends, not the crowd. He was completely, utterly alone. "Escort him out," Liam's voice cut through the silence. The guards grabbed Derek by the arms. This time he didn't fight. He slumped, the fight draining out of him as the reality of his destroyed life crashed down. As they dragged him toward the exit, his shoes dragging on the carpet, he looked back one last time at Madeline. She had already turned her back on him. She was sitting back down, taking a sip of wine and smiling at her husband. Derek Caldwell was gone from her life, not with a bang, but with a whimper. The rest of the evening at the Grand Oak Hotel passed in a blur of surreal adoration. The same people who had avoided eye contact with Madeline 2 hours ago were now lining up to congratulate her. They complimented her dress, her poise, and her inspiring journey. Madeline navigated it all with grace, but she kept her answers short. She knew the difference between respect and sycophancy. By 11 p.m., they were in the back of Liam's chauffeured Maybach, gliding away from the hotel and the wreckage of her past life. The city lights of Seattle streaked past the tinted windows. Madeline kicked off her heels and leaned her head on Liam's shoulder. She let out a long, shuddering breath. "You okay?" Liam asked, his hand finding hers in the dark. "I think so," Madeline whispered. Did we go too far? With Derek?" Liam was silent for a moment. He looked out the window, his expression unreadable. "He humiliated you publicly, Madeline. He tried to destroy your dignity in front of your peers. I didn't destroy him. I just removed the platform he was using to stand on." "I know," she said. "It just felt biblical." Liam chuckled softly. "Well, I have a confession to make." Madeline lifted her head. "What?" "I didn't buy Horizon Tech tonight," Liam admitted, turning to face her. "I bought it 3 days ago." Madeline's eyes widened. "What?" "I knew about the reunion," Liam explained. "I knew Derek would be there. I had my team run a background check on him last week. Standard procedure when my wife is entering a hostile environment. I saw his financials. I saw the company was failing. And I saw that he had been bragging on social media about showing his ex-wife who's boss." Liam tightened his grip on her hand. "I didn't want to ruin his night," Liam continued. "I was going to let the acquisition news drop next week, quietly. But when I walked in and heard him, when I saw him pointing at you like you were some kind of exhibit." "You pulled the trigger," Madeline finished for him. "I pulled the trigger," Liam nodded. "I wanted him to know that the power he thought he had, the corporate title, the status, wasn't real. It belonged to me. And now, indirectly, it belongs to you." Madeline stared at him. It was terrifying how protective he was, but also deeply comforting. Derek had treated her like an accessory. Liam treated her like a treasure that needed to be guarded with iron and fire. "So," Madeline asked, a small smile playing on her lips, "technically, I'm his boss?" "Technically," Liam grinned. "You own a significant amount of voting stock in Bennett Global. So yes, you could rehire him tomorrow if you wanted." Madeline laughed. It was a genuine, free laugh. Not in a million years. "Good," Liam kissed her forehead, "because I already turned his office into a break room for the interns." The interior of the Maybach was a sanctuary of silence and soft leather, a stark contrast to the cacophony of the ballroom they had just left. The city lights of Seattle streaked past the tinted windows, blurring into lines of gold and red. But Madeline Sterling saw none of it. Her mind was still replaying the look on Derek's face, the shattering of his ego, the desperate realization that he was no longer the protagonist of his own life. Beside her, Liam Bennett loosened his bow tie, his posture relaxing for the first time in 3 hours. He didn't speak immediately. He let the silence do the work, allowing Madeline to process the dismantling of her past trauma. "You bought the company 3 days ago," Madeline said softly, breaking the silence. It wasn't a question. She was testing the weight of the reality. "I did," Liam replied, turning to look at her. His eyes, usually sharp and calculating in the boardroom, were tender. "I knew what he was planning, Madeline. Men like Derek aren't subtle. He was bragging on forums, telling his friends he was going to put you in your place. I couldn't stop you from going. You needed to face him to heal. But I could make sure the ground he stood on was mined." Madeline looked down at her hands. The 4-carat blue diamond on her finger caught the passing streetlights. "I feel heavy. Is that wrong? He's ruined. I watched his life end in real time." "He ruined himself," Liam corrected firmly. "I just accelerated the timeline. Horizon Tech was already failing because he was focused on image rather than substance. His marriage to Jessica was failing because it was a merger, not a partnership. Tonight was just the audit, and he failed it." He took her hand, his thumb tracing her knuckles. "The question is, how do you feel? Not about him. About you." Madeline took a deep breath. She closed her eyes and pictured the 24-year-old version of herself, crying in a Honda Civic, terrified of the future, believing she was worthless because a narcissist told her so. She mentally hugged that girl. "I feel," she whispered, opening her eyes, "like I can finally breathe." While Madeline slept peacefully in the master suite of the Bennett penthouse, Derek Caldwell woke up on the floor of his guest room in the Hollywood Hills. His head was pounding with the rhythm of a jackhammer. The taste of stale scotch and humiliation coated his mouth. For a split second, he thought it was a nightmare. Then he saw his tuxedo jacket crumpled in the corner, stained with wine from when he had stumbled out of the hotel. Memory rushed back like a tidal wave. The speech, Liam Bennett, the phone call, the firing. "No," Derek groaned, sitting up and clutching his head. "I can fix this. I can fix this." He scrambled for his phone. He needed to call Henderson. He needed to apologize, to beg, to explain that it was all a misunderstanding. He unlocked his phone. There were 0 missed calls, 0 texts, but there was 1 notification from the security system. Garage door opened. 6:15 a.m. Derek frowned. He pulled himself up and stumbled out into the hallway. The house was eerily quiet. "Jess?" he called out. "Jessica?" No answer. He walked into the master bedroom. It was ransacked, not by robbers but by someone packing in a fury. The walk-in closet was stripped bare. Jessica's designer clothes, her shoes, her jewelry, all gone. On the bed, stripped of its sheets, sat a single white envelope. Derek's hands shook as he opened it. Inside was a letter on heavy stationery, written in Jessica's sharp, jagged handwriting. "Derek, my father saw the video. Someone live-streamed your little meltdown on TikTok. It has 2 million views. You are a laughingstock, and by association, you are making me look like a fool. Daddy spoke to his lawyers this morning. Since the house is in my name, bought with my trust fund, and the cars are leased through his company, you are currently trespassing. You have until noon to vacate the premises. The locks will be changed electronically at 12:01 p.m. Don't try to call me. My lawyer, Mr. Vance, will be in touch regarding the annulment. I'm going to Cabo to forget I ever met you." J. Derek stared at the paper. He didn't scream. He couldn't. The air had been sucked out of his lungs. He ran to the garage. The spot where the Porsche usually sat was empty. His spot. The only car left was an old bicycle he had bought 2 years ago to get in shape, and never used. He had 6 hours. 6 hours to pack 5 years of a life that he realized, with terrifying clarity, he had never actually owned. He had been a guest in Jessica's life, just as he had been an employee in Liam's company. He owned nothing. He was nothing. Monday morning brought a grey, relentless drizzle to Seattle. Derek stood outside the glass monolith of the Horizon Tech building. Usually, he would walk through the revolving doors, flash his platinum badge, and grab a latte from the executive lounge. Today, he wore a hoodie and jeans. He walked up to the turnstiles. He tapped his badge. Beep, beep. Access denied. He tapped it again. Beep, beep. "Sir, please, step back," a voice rumbled. Derek looked up. It was Miller, the head of lobby security. Derek had walked past Miller every day for 3 years. He had never once said hello. He had once reported Miller for looking sloppy. "Miller, it's me," Derek said, forcing a smile. "My badge is glitching. Just let me up to my office so I can grab my laptop." Miller didn't smile. He stood with his arms crossed, a look of deep satisfaction in his eyes. "You don't have an office, Mr. Caldwell, and you don't have a laptop. Company property." "I have personal files on there," Derek snapped, his old arrogance flaring up. "Wiped," Miller said calmly. "It scrubbed the drive at 8 a.m. remotely." Miller reached behind the desk and pulled out a cardboard box. It was small. Inside, Derek could see a framed photo of him and Jessica, which he now hated, a stress ball, and a cheap pen. "This is everything from your desk," Miller said, sliding the box across the marble counter. "Mr. Henderson left specific instructions. You are not to enter the elevators. If you cause a scene, I am authorized to call the police for trespassing." Derek looked at the box. "That's it? 3 years of record-breaking sales, and this is it?" "Mr. Bennett's transition team arrived this morning," Miller said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "They announced a salary bump for all support staff. It's a good day for us, Derek, just not for you." Derek grabbed the box. He felt the eyes of the receptionists on him. He felt the gaze of the young analysts walking in, the ones he used to bully. They were whispering. He turned and walked out into the rain. He didn't have a car, so he had to walk 4 blocks to the bus stop. The cardboard box disintegrated in the rain before he even got there, spilling his stress ball into the gutter. He didn't bother to pick it up. 3 months later, the studio apartment smelled of mildew and instant ramen. It was located in a part of the city Derek used to make fun of, claiming only people with no ambition lived there. Now, it was the only place that would take him without a credit check. Derek sat at a wobbly particle board table, staring at his laptop screen. His hair had grown out, unkempt and messy. He hadn't shaved in 4 days. He was on a Zoom call, his 5th interview of the week. This one was for a junior sales position at a mid-tier logistics company, a job he would have sneered at a year ago. "So, Mr. Caldwell," the interviewer said, looking down at a file. He was a man younger than Derek, perhaps 25. "Your resume is impressive on paper. VP at Horizon. But there's a gap here, and I have to ask about the reference check." There was a restructuring," Derek lied, his voice raspy. "Horizon was acquired. Redundancies happen." The interviewer pursed his lips. "Right. The Bennett acquisition. Well, here's the thing, Derek. We do business with Bennett Global. Everyone does. They are the supply chain." Derek's stomach dropped. "We got a memo," the interviewer continued, looking uncomfortable. Not an official blacklist, legally speaking, but let's call it a character advisory. It seems you have a reputation for volatility, and frankly, we can't risk offending the Bennett group. We're a small fish. They're the ocean. I can explain, Derek pleaded, leaning into the camera. That was a personal matter. It has nothing to do with my sales figures. Character is currency, Mr. Caldwell, the interviewer said. And yours is bankrupt. I think we're done here. The screen went black. Derek slammed the laptop shut. He put his head in his hands. It wasn't just Horizon. Liam Bennett hadn't just fired him. He had salted the earth. Derek was unhireable in the city of Seattle. He would have to move to the Midwest, maybe further, to find someone who didn't know his name. He would have to start over from zero. Actually, he thought, looking at his negative bank balance, he was starting from below zero. He stood up and walked to the window. The rain was still falling. He needed air. He put on his coat and walked down to the corner dive bar, the only place where people didn't look at him with recognition or pity. He ordered a cheap beer and sat in the back booth. The TV above the bar was playing the local news. "Turn that up, will you?" the bartender yelled to no one in particular. The volume rose. And finally tonight, a heartwarming story from the downtown district. The Bennett Foundation has officially opened the Sterling Wing of the public library, named after the director's late grandmother. Derek froze. He looked up at the screen. There she was, Madeline. She looked different than she had at the reunion. At the reunion, she had been guarded, armored, in fashion. Now she looked free. She was wearing a simple blazer, her hair tied back. She was surrounded by children, reading from a book. She looked radiant. The camera cut to a close-up of her, speaking to a reporter. "Why libraries?" the reporter asked. "Because," Madeline said, her voice clear and strong, "when I was going through a divorce 5 years ago, I didn't have anywhere to go. I didn't have money for coffee shops. I came to the library. It was warm, it was safe. And the books told me that stories can change, that just because you're in a dark chapter doesn't mean the book ends there." The camera pulled back to show Liam standing in the background. He wasn't trying to steal the spotlight. He was just watching her, a look of absolute adoration on his face. He held her purse while she cut the ribbon. Derek stared at the beer in his hand. He remembered the days he used to yell at her for buying books. He remembered telling her that reading was a waste of time. He remembered telling her she was boring. He realized now that she hadn't been boring. She had been deep, and he had been too shallow to touch the bottom. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. His thumb hovered over her old number. He hadn't deleted it. He typed a message. "Maddie, I saw the news. I'm sorry. For everything. I didn't know." He stared at the blinking cursor. What did he expect? Forgiveness? A handout? A savior? He realized that sending the text would be the final selfish act. She was happy. She was safe. She was loved by a man who built libraries for her, while Derek couldn't even build a home for himself. He deleted the text. He blocked her number. Not out of anger, but out of a final, necessary resignation. It was the first selfless thing he had done in a decade. Back at the penthouse, the gala was over. The guests had gone. Madeline kicked off her heels and walked out onto the terrace. The rain had stopped, leaving the air crisp and clean. Liam came out behind her, holding 2 mugs of tea. "You were amazing today," he said, handing her a mug. "The board is already talking about expanding the program to Chicago." "I'd like that," Madeline smiled, inhaling the steam. She looked out at the city skyline. Somewhere out there, she knew Derek was existing, but he felt small now, tiny, like a speck of dust in the rearview mirror of a speeding car. "Do you ever wonder where he is?" Liam asked quietly. "Who?" Madeline asked. Liam looked at her, searching for any sign of lingering pain. He found none. "Exactly," Liam smiled. Madeline turned to him and rested her hand on his chest. "I don't wonder about the past, Liam. I'm too busy building the future." She looked back at the city, a city she once thought would swallow her whole. Now she held the keys to it. She had walked through the fire of humiliation and come out not hardened, but refined. She was no longer the ex-wife. She was Madeline Bennett. And her story was just beginning. And that is the story of Madeline and Derek. It's a powerful reminder that arrogance is a fragile thing. Derek thought he could step on people on his way up, never realizing that the people you hurt are the ones who might be holding the ladder when you fall. He learned the hard way that true class isn't about what you wear or how much money you make. It's about how you treat people when you think no one powerful is watching. What did you think of Liam's reaction? Was it too harsh, or did Derek get exactly what he deserved? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of hard karma and justice, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a new story. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.